the only thing that we think about are race and gender,
Yep.
right?
When it's so much more than that.
So much more. There's like 4 different layers of diversity, and
Yeah.
in between there's about 32 different aspects.
Welcome into Facts Not Feelings. I am your host, Brooke Furniss. Today, we are taking a deep dive into DEI and leadership in the automotive industry. Joining us is Sandy Zannino from Innovative Auto HR, a visionary in transforming workplace culture. You ever wonder how inclusive leadership can rev up your team's performance? Get ready for an insightful journey filled with practical strategies and eye-opening discussions on creating inclusive, high-performing teams in the fast-paced automotive world. Let's start the conversation with Sandy. Welcome to the show, Sandy.
Hey, Brooke. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
We're so excited to have you here. I was actually, before the show, I was thinking, like, I'm trying to think the first time that we met. I know it was a conference. I think it was DMS, FRC maybe, out in Florida, I think it was out in Florida.
Yeah.
I think that's where we first met.
It could be.
It's been
with social media. Sometimes I feel like I know somebody really, really well, and then I realize, I'll see somebody at a conference. I'm like,
all right, let's jump right into the Sandy. Okay. In the automotive industry, it's evolving so rapidly. From your perspective, what are some of the top trending DEI initiatives in 2024, and how are they reshaping HR in our field?
That's quite a question, Brooke. We're coming at them. So I think one of the big initiatives that we see and that we will continue seeing is ERGs, right? One of an employee resource group or a business resource group. I've talked to several dealers who want to do something, in particular, usually starting with women, having an underrepresented group, which women are highly underrepresented in automotive. We flatlined on that number, actually, according to NADA. We're at 18.8% in retail. 18.8% for the last 3 years. 2017, it was at like 19 point something. So that I think that ERGs, I think that there's been a slowing of DEI. Right. There's, you can't be in this world and not recognize that there's a lot of pushback with DEI, right? And I think that that's something that we should acknowledge and look at head on, right? One of the, I'm sure I'll talk to you about my counsel and what my beliefs are about this, right? About DEI, because I love the automotive industry. Right. I think that sometimes, and we are so unique in a lot of ways. And I think that, DEI has been proven to give organizations, when it's done right, higher results on their bottom line. Right. Like this is done. Only we don't have any case studies for retail automotive for this.
Really?
Yeah, there aren't. Not yet. I'm working on it. This is something, and I feel like we really need it. I feel like we really need this because, dealers, I think the mindset sometimes is like, yeah, that's great for McKinsey. You get studies from McKinsey, Deloitte, they're think tanks, right? They're this and that. This is the real, and we're automotive, right? That's doesn't stand for us, right? But I believe it does.
Right? Well, as much as I love this industry, we all know we're about 10 to 20 years behind the time. So, in 10 years, we'll be caught up to where we are for 2024.
Yes,
everyone's going to be in 2035. So, we're getting somewhere. I love this industry, though. Absolutely love it. But to your point, it just takes some time. And I know that, I don't know if you and I have had this discussion, and I know we'll get into it later on. But once again, if you've been in the industry as a female for a minute, we'll say that, the walls you had to break down. And that you also respect the fact that those that broke down the walls before you. But it's so much I love the industry. You do have to have thick skin to be in this industry, to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, sayings like that, and I hope that one day that we can change those feelings, right? And that you have to have, what do I need to have thick skin for, really, when you think about it? Is it because the inappropriate comments that are coming my way? Is it because leaders don't, I need to have thick skin because I'm going to be dealing with mean people? Like the majority of the people I know in automotive are kind, compassionate, caring, right? What is the thick skin really about? Is it because to have a thick skin, this is what some of my learning has taught me, is like to be curious about why do I have to, is it because I need to have a thick skin as a woman because I need to change who I am?
No.
In order to survive? But if I got to get thick skin, right? And I'll take me, for example, right? My heart is always on my sleeve, pretty much, right? Like, and I've always been like sensitive. And I've been able to be who I am and not have thick skin. That doesn't mean that I'm not confident. I'm not smart. I'm not, I have all the things that it takes. I am intelligent, right? But when we're talking about thick skin, anyway, I hope that one day we can change how we think about certain things.
I agree with that. It's that we could have an entire episode just about females. We have had these conversations. You've been in the industry long enough. We all know if you've been in it long enough, the fun-filledness, and then, like I said, I love the industry. It's definitely more challenging as a female for sure. You're in a guy's world, so it's for me. I love it because the majority of my friends are guys, anyways, and I love cars, so it worked out nicely that when I fell into this industry, I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like we'll work with it. But all right, let's segue off of this a little bit here. So we look at the wonderful of the inclusive leadership. Like you hear so much about this. It's turned into this buzzword of like, oh, inclusive leadership or DEI. And it really shouldn't be a buzzword. So in your experience, what are the must-have skills for automotive executives in today's diverse work environment?
Okay, so I think that there are 4 essential skills, right? This is actually my NADA talk.
Ooh.
That there are, in order to build, I think that inclusion and really understanding what inclusion means and how to get some of it in your organization. One, it's not going to happen like that. And when I say, essential skills, there might be termed soft skills, but trust me, they are hard to do, right? When we're talking about inclusion. And the reason I think inclusion is so important is because it is the glue, right? Inclusion is the glue that holds any D and E and B belonging together. Not only that, as human beings, inclusion is so important to us. Exclusion, the opposite of inclusion, is so harmful that it can actually cause physical harm. Mm-hmm. Things like shingles, right? When things that cause anxiety and or that come from anxiety. I read something that just blew me away, like not that long ago. That exclusion has the same neurological response in your brain as physical harm.
I can see that for sure.
Just blew me away, right? Like I know what it feels like to be left out, but to be, so anyway, let's get to those 4 essential skills, right? Because I do believe that they're essential skills. And the first one, it's really kind of 2, but I put them together. It's open-minded self-awareness, right? I don't believe you can't have one without the other. You can't be self-aware without having an open mind that I might be wrong about something, about my internal beliefs, examining where those beliefs come from, and most especially examining your bias, right? Mm-hmm. And you have them.
Everybody has them.
You have them. I love to invite people to just Google the Harvard bias test and take a couple.
Yes.
They're awesome. They only take like 10 minutes. And let me know when you get surprised, right? Like, I know I was surprised. I was like, what? No, I'm not going to. I totally have a bias, a positive bias toward men. Like, deep down, because of how I grew up, I think men are supposed to be in charge. They're supposed to be the decision makers. I was like, what? Let me take this test again.
I gotta change my answers here. These aren't right.
Then there is emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. Right? Coming to understand your own emotions and manage them, right? And I don't think that anybody can be perfect. I'm not perfect at these,
No.
right? Sometimes, in fact, I was on another show and somebody said something that snapped my emotional intelligence completely away. And I went back and I have a screenshot because it's hilarious. Have a sense of humor through all of this, right? And there's a screenshot and you can see the moment because I went like this. Like my hands are up in the air.
I love it.
Hilarious, right? So then emotional maturity, growing into what you're learning about when you're exploring and trying to work on your emotional intelligence, right? This is going to help you become okay with sharing, right? I think that as leaders sometimes we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to show our vulnerability. We don't want to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers. Sometimes I think it's a huge pressure for leaders to have the panacea, right? I know the answer. And it's going to fix everything. And I just think that that's, so when we get to emotional maturity, understand that we don't have all the answers, right? For example, that opens us up and the magic really kind of happens there, right? Because that lets your team know that it's okay to be vulnerable as well. And then you can really get to know your people, right? And the last thing is cultural intelligence. And I think that this is really important because as the demographics in the United States change with every generation, becomes more and more racially, ethnically, and culturally diverse. I think that this is really important to understand. I always talk about this sometimes, or not most of the time. I will bring this up when it talks about culture, right? Like different cultures. And I'm talking about different countries. We have the perfect example of cultural loggerhead, I guess, right? With the Daimler Chrysler, right? Two cultures that, when Daimler Chrysler fell apart, Germany and the United States, right? Two really strong, and they just said, boom, and it made it fall apart.
Yep.
Right. So those kind of understandings, that those are my 4 skills that I think that leaders should develop.
And they are very, very good skills. And I feel, and I know it's fact I feel, I'm going to say Phil here just because I see it so often and I don't have the stats to back it up. But going through this, and when we talked before the show, how many, done quite a few shows on leadership and diversity and all of those fun topics. And yet too often, especially I feel like this year as well, there seems to be this switch of people either pulling back on it more or to, like you said, push against it more. And it's when you really stop to think, okay, if I go into, I don't care what business it is, and I don't see someone like me in that business, do I want to do business with them? No, I'm going to go somewhere that I can see myself there. So that's one thing. And then I would say as well as when you're looking at it to say, okay, to your point of this is not going to happen overnight. If you all of a sudden you want to have more females in your business, that I applaud that. That's awesome. Now, what are you doing at the top on down to make that happen? Because at the top is all males and you've done nothing to hire, or there's not a workplace environment that's a good workplace environment. And I don't want to use the word culture just because that gets thrown out so much, but that's inclusive to everybody. Then all you've done is just say, all right, this type of person is not welcome here. Right. So what are you switching from almost say like a process standpoint to enable it to know that this might be a generational thing where we start now to start, okay, by 2025, we want to have one, whatever it is on our board. Okay, great. What are you doing now to make that happen? Because if there's no one right there right now, you got a little bit of a hill to climb, and that's great. You recognize it, but you've got to start somewhere. It's so, so important. So I want to take this into the right at the ground level here of how does fostering an inclusive work environment impact sales and service quality in our awesome automotive industry?
Oh, like it directly impacts it, right? One of the things that I am fond of saying is that don't forget that your external customer base and your internal customer base are the same, right? They're the same. And if you're not connecting this is another study that I want to do. Right? I want to do a study of
Well, in 2025, there's going to be a bunch of studies coming out from Sandy. Let's just call it like that.
Sandy and the Allied Inclusion Council, right? I want to do a study about just what you're saying about lost customer opportunity, right? Like, I know that this data is out there for lost customers, sales. Let's talk about sales that they come into your store and they don't buy.
Why?
I want to know why. I want to talk to those customers and I want to know why. And then I want to know where they bought, and who they bought from. Right? And why they chose that store.
Yeah.
It's price. Somehow I doubt it. Right? Everything I've learned about sales is about relationships. Right? It's about building relationships. So when we're it's not just about sales, but it's also about so you're burning money in those lost opportunities when your staff isn't directly connecting with the shared values, the shared culture of the people that you serve, right? And that really is the first step, is looking at that. If you're going to take on some DEI, and don't be afraid, don't be afraid to do it. I think that there's a lot of people right now who are just, who say, you know what, I'm going to be Switzerland, because it's so polarized right now.
It is.
And people look at the D of diversity. Well, we have to, I just now had to remember that I'm HR.
Yep. You're like, wait a second, wait. And you're on my show, so you know my brain immediately just went there. So we're gonna roll with that one. But
you know what?
Look at the D, guys. It's all good. Just look at it right now. Show's already off the rails. It's fantastic.
I had to remember that. I'm fun HR though. That's always the thing, right? That's what I tell people. I'm fun HR, bring your little humanity into HR. But people look at diversity. They hear the word diversity, and the only thing that we think about are race and gender.
Yep.
Right?
So much more than that.
So much more. There's like 4 different layers of diversity. And in between there's about 32 different aspects. Something like that, right? Like, I have this little diversity. I understand that. When I first looked at the word diversity, I would hear diversity. I'd be like, I didn't see myself in that conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Until I saw my first diversity wheel. And I mean, it's pretty eye-opening. But I would encourage people to don't be silent. If you want to do something, figure out how to do it within the laws of, I live in Florida, right? So Florida has some pretty interesting rules to navigate.
Yes, they do. As
far as diversity, equity, and inclusion. Inclusion, I think you have really hit something when you were talking, is so important, because you can hire all the diversity you want, but until you put inclusion's the glue. I think the other thing that challenges us in particular in automotive with this is the 30-day cycle that we normally live in, right? Give me the results quick now.
Yep.
And these results don't happen quickly. And it's a process, right? Just jumping in. Doing things like ERGs are really great. I want to see something with results, right? Like, I want to see, I want to do some case studies with some groups that are really dug in. How has that changed your ratio, your female to male ratio, right? So you have a female ERG for 3 or 4 years now. Has it changed the ratio, right? And what is the goal of that? You've aligned it with your business functions. You're giving more leadership training to the underrepresented, right? How does it translate to the profit line?
Yeah.
We need to
There's so many studies about, and I cannot remember. There's so many studies just about having females as your sales people.
We all know it.
They when you walk in, I want to work with a female. Like, it makes such a difference from an ROI standpoint. And I just want to touch on things, because we're talking about the diversity here. And to your point, I think a lot of people get caught up that it's race and gender. It's more than that. If I walk in and everyone is I'll say 16 older, that's great for one sector of our nation, of our world. But what about, okay, wait, Gen Zs are on their second car at this point. Do you have any Gen Zs working for you? How do you then cater to them? Because how they learn is 100% different than how you and I were raised. Like we're just how you train them, how you work with them, how you coach them. So understand that. Or, hey, I'm not going to hire someone because you are 60, 70. I'm not going to hire you. That's the same thing. Like, and too often we don't think about that. It's just we automatically go to, I saw it on TV, and that's going to be race and gender. That's exactly what it is. Well, that's a part of it. It's a part of it. So I just want to make sure that I know we talked about this, but I just want to make sure that we bring this home a little bit further, just that it's not just that. And there are other things that are quite visibly, hey, do we have this person? Once again, when I walk in, regardless of who I am, do I have someone that looks like me there? Do I have someone that speaks my language? Whether that's a physical language, whether it's my digital body, my actual language are there, whatever it may be. But can I relate with you?
Right.
And then we're going to jump into metrics here in a little bit, and so I'm just going to segue this into that. Are you looking at your metrics to say, well, I don't really know what our community is? Well, go maybe look at some metrics. Go look at your social. Go look at these different things and say, wait a second, I can see that, other than English is our first language, Spanish our second. Great. Do you have anybody Spanish speaking in your business right now? What type of marketing? We had Venus Toro on from Win with us a couple months ago. And I mean, we talked how important that is to have that Spanish and that bilingual marketing and that presence that's true, and no knock to Google Translate. Does a great job, and it saved my ass more times than I can count. So thank you, Google Translate. When you're trying to connect with someone that's their first language, take it a step further, because that's and look at those metrics. Maybe your second language is Polish. Maybe it's German, whatever it may be. Take a look at that and understand we have a lot of people coming to our site looking at this, and they can't read it. I mean, or they're using Google Translate, which isn't going to tell them everything they need to know. So just taking that, like I said, just a little step further. So on the metric portion of this is, in your mind, what are some key performance indicators, those KPIs for DEI in our automotive sector, and how should they be effectively measured and analyzed?
Okay, so the first, I do want to comment on what you said about generational diversity.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that this for us is vital.
Agreed.
It's vital because make sure we get back to what I think are the symptoms, right? Just try to remember that, right? I want to answer your question, but our generational diversity is so important to our talent acquisition, right? And attracting and retaining. Here's a metric for you. 64% of our workforce in 2025, which is now around the corner, will be millennial and Gen Z. Gen Z is a big generation, right?
Huge.
So we need to understand them. And I'll tell you something from the employer standpoint or the employee standpoint. So I'm Gen X, right? Like I'm Gen X. And my generation comes into a new job, a new employer with 100% trust. I trust automatically that what was represented to me at the interview, all of the terms and benefits of this new role that I have, are absolutely true. I trust that what you told me about culture and what it's going to be like to work around here, because that's the definition of culture, is what it is, right? If you told me there's integrity, service, growth, and fun, I think that's what I'm getting into, right? And then as an employer, you have the opportunity to either lift that up or chip it away. Gen Z comes into the workplace, zero trust.
Yep.
They don't trust you, right? They don't trust you at all. In fact, they think you're lying.
Yep.
So another number that I follow, I look at this at least every quarter, how many job openings there are per job seeker, right? And right now it's shrunk. Hey, the last year or so, this has actually shrunk, where there are about 1.4 job openings for every job seeker, right? So we're not 1 for 1, which is bad anyway, but is bad for employers. The ball is still in the candidate's court. They have options. So with Gen Z, if you don't start building that trust right away, They're not going to stay. I just looked at the new NADA workforce study, and Gen Z turns over, I want to say at like 70-something%.
Yeah, I would say at least 70. And I'm not seeing this side, but that does not surprise me, knowing how, when I go back when millennials are being blamed for everything, and I was working with a store, and it's like the infamous meme of like the girl like looking back and the house is on fire, and I'm like, damn you millennials. Yeah. Like that's what I said, like, and Gen Z, here's your baton. Good luck with this.
Yeah. Now it's Gen Z on the hot seat, right?
Yeah.
You know how long we've been talking about the next generation?
God, for a long time.
I have a quote from Socrates.
Oh, shit.
That is attributed to Socrates.
Oh, Socrates!
Like,
didn't know Socrates was going to make it on the show today.
Basically, is like these kids today, like they
get off my lawn.
We don't like them because they're younger than us. Come on, that's whatever.
And it is. I remember like there was a whole thing of like, how to teach how to interact with your millennial customers. Like I did a whole thing on like certain words you're going to use only for millennials versus Gen X boomers, whatever. Maybe Gen Z wasn't a thing at that point. And so like I'm trying to teach them, like, I just don't understand how to connect with them. I'm like, but we're going to say that. Now we're saying the same thing with Gen Z. I don't, this generation, they're lazy. I can't connect with them. Okay, I get it. There's different, but how you interact, even how a customer buys a vehicle is way different from boomer to Gen X to millennial to Gen Z. Like it's all different. If you're not taking your due diligence to understand that, once again, you're lighting money on fire because you can't sell to them. When I was talking to Sarah CCO, I think it was Sarah. I'm just going to say it was. And we were just discussing how different, like, she goes, you understand, like, Brooke, I'm on my third car. Gen Zs are on their second. I was like, this is crazy to, like, and it didn't make that connection. But I was like, you're right. Like, and we're so worried that we're doing all the same targeting and messaging and marketing to a clientele that still market to them. Just understand they're not the big piece of the pie anymore. It's over here that you're really going to have to learn that, hey, they get their news from TikTok. They get their news from social media. That's where they're getting their stuff.
And don't forget that Gen Z is a big generation, right? Huge. So like my Gen Z is 20, right? And I offer, this is hilarious because I know people in the business, right? Her first car it's a 2005 Civic that I bought with like 45,000 miles on it, right?
Nice.
It's a great car. Works for her. It's perfect. So, 5 years down the road now, and I'm like, do you want to get a new car? How about if we get you a new car? She's practical. She's like, nope, this car's working just fine for me. It's going good. I don't want to spend the money, right? Gen Z is really practical, and they are much more monetarily focused than millennials in general, right? Like no group is monolithic, right? You're going to find differences, but Gen Z is less. They might not seem like they're not pie in the sky, but their head in the sky, less idealistic maybe. But they're pretty awesome. I think they're awesome when they find their purpose.
Yep.
For years when my kid was a teenager, I was like, what is going to happen, right? And then I didn't think she was going to college, nothing. Then she found her purpose. She loves me. She is a musician. She's a vocal. And she's so super smart. You should interview her.
Yeah.
She came, a school called Full Sail University came to her school. She came in the door, said, Mom, I know where I want to go to college. I was like, great, I'm on board. Immediately, this kid turned into someone else. Well, she turned into she started to grow into who she was. She graduated from high school early, no help from me, right? I was busy doing this. She figured out how to do 2 years in one. One part of her school was online. So she graduated at 16 and graduated with her bachelor's degree at 19.
Damn.
Right? Like, when they find their purpose, let them go.
Yeah. And get out of their way.
Just because, and this is advice for just because, especially when we've got these generations in our workforce, right? The challenge that we have is moving all the skill, knowledge, and experience from boomers and Gen X into into millennial and Gen Z, right? Like, we need to do that. But to do that, we need to understand them. We also need to understand that the way that they do things is going to be different from the way that we did things. Homework. Look at homework. My
Oh.
kid, the first day, I'll never forget it. I can see it in my mind. There she is, homework. She gets her headphones and she's listening to music doing her homework. And I'm going, you can't do your homework that way. Right? How can you do your homework that way? She's like, I let go. And she came out with straight E's. So what could I say?
Yep.
Try your employees.
It's so true. My good friends, his name is Josh Dreen. So Josh Dreen, shout out to you. But he does so much of this HR, and especially he's got so many little funny reels about how we treat younger generations versus how they perceive it. And I just like, it's a hard time. Like he had one in particular that I love because I related to it so much. He goes, if I look at my son, he spends a ton of time on video games. Like, and so when you say that people aren't collaborative, it's not necessarily true because they're collaborative with people all around the world and they're focused there for so long. So it's understand, going back to what you said, is that, hey, do we know what motivates them? Do we know, I love saying, do you know their why? Do you know your employees' why? Do you understand that, okay, for Brooke, she wants to, it's not about making money. I mean, with the younger generation, yeah, money's nice, but for them, it's, I need to know why I'm making this. Okay, it's going to evolve into, for me, it's more shoes for Brooke. It's more Jordans for Brooke. For someone else, it's the vacation with their family. Oh, they have an ailing parent in the household. All these different things to understand why, what does the money mean? Because they can get a job just about anywhere. They can work from home. There's been so many startups and entrepreneurs and what have you that have just skyrocketed over the last couple of years. So there are options for them. And when you tell them you have to be at the office, you have to do this, you have to do this, all you're doing is putting constraints on them, and you're not going to hire. You're drowning that pool.
You know, and especially when we're looking at Gen Z, right? They actually are more monetarily motivated, right? Like they, and it makes sense when you think about what was happening in the world when they were growing up, right? Like they saw their parents, a lot of their parents lose a lot in 2008 and 9, right? Like they're like, these kids that grew up not knowing what a pre 9/11 world was like. Right? Like these are kids that the bomb scare at school was a normal everyday occurrence.
Yep.
Right. Ariana peed in the trash can once at school because there was a bomb scare and she had to go. Right. So, she's like, what was I going to do? It's a bomb scare. Was it?
Yeah.
Right. So she took it in a closet and that's what happened. Yeah. And they will have a side gig.
Yes.
They're going to have your job and they'll have a side gig. Ari does. And guess what? She just sent me a spreadsheet with all her expenses and her income and expenses for her side gig. That's prettier than any spreadsheet I ever.
You're like, how about you do my spreadsheets? I'm good with that.
Spreadsheet, Ariana.
I love it. Okay, so let's go a little bit about measuring success here. So we talk a lot of things that we can do, but then it's like, okay, is it working? And that success and measurement is so critical. So considering, I'll say not even the global market, but you've got so much more. How does DEI standards impact multinational automotive companies?
Okay, so, when we're saying multinational, right, let's just look at the United States right now. How should you be measuring first, you got to figure out what your DEI goals are.
Yep.
Right. And we can talk about measuring inclusion. I actually just did a session on how to measure inclusion, right? Like this ideal of inclusion. There are ways to do it. The first measurement before you get started doing anything, and it's going to be, every company is going to figure that out for themselves. Right. But the first thing that you should be measuring is, you mentioned it earlier, Brooke, right? You should look at your demographics in your dealership, and you have it. It's called the EEO1. If you have 100 employees or more, all of you should be doing it. If you haven't done it, you should call me and I'll help you figure that shit out because you need to do it. But it gives you, in a payroll snapshot, your entire workforce minus names. They're categorized by race and gender and ethnicity, right? And then by job category is what they call it. It's a little tricky when you're doing it because there is a category for technicians and mechanics don't go in that category, right? So it's weird. But so you have this data. You can see where your women are. You can see if they're at the executive level or at their first line manager level. You can see where everybody is, right? And then you pull the data from the area that you operate in, right? There's a great website that I look at for this data. It's called dataus.io, I think, or I'll look it up. But and we'll put that in the wherever this goes. It has much better data that gives you your demographic data in the area that you work and where you operate, right? You want to see how that matches up. And then from there, you want to get with your executive staff, right? And you want to figure out your why. The thing is that DEI, your DEI initiatives should be tied to your mission. If you don't have one, get one. Your values, right? All of these things. And then you can come up with what do you want to measure, right? And I don't measure people. People are not numbers, right? Stay away from, obviously affirmative action was the Supreme Court made a decision that has really changed minds, and I think that that's a big thing that has changed the perspective of a lot of people. However, when we're honest with ourselves, we can still see that there are underrepresented communities, right?
Yes.
In our dealerships. So go with what you see, right? And go with figuring out ways to match the area that you operate in, matching your customers so that you can connect with them. That's what this is about, right? This is, in the end, it's about your business. And then you will come up with your consultant or whoever you're doing your DEI work with, how you're going to measure, because there should be some scorecards. One thing that is an easy thing to measure is in talent acquisition, right? You're not measuring how many Asian women you're hiring, right? That's not what you're measuring. What you should measure is, does your candidate slate, when you have a role, do you have a candidate slate? Here's my little notes that I'm a squiggler. You have a candidate slate that is representative. And if you don't, why? Right? And where are you going to find your candidates? Start being, we're innovative, right? Like start thinking of, there's chambers of commerce, right? There's a Latino chamber of commerce. There's a Black chamber of commerce. There's a lot of different ways. There's HBCUs, for example, the historically Black colleges and universities, right? That you can begin to recruit from. It's looking at different things. So it's not about the number of people you hire. It's about the candidate slate to really ensure that you are hiring the best of the best, right? Like we can't
just checking a box because I have to.
It is not about checking the box. It's not about checking the box. And then I would start to measure inclusion, right? I think measuring inclusion, for example, who gets invited to meetings, right? Look at it. Who speaks up at those meetings? There are a few different ways. Who's getting promotions? When are people getting promotions? Right? Not just did a minority or did a woman get a promotion? How long did it take her
versus her counterpart?
The counterpart, right? Did it take her 15 years to finally get to GSM? And it took 2 years for, look at those things and be honest with yourself. And it's okay to be like, holy crap.
We gotta change. We gotta make a change.
I didn't see something, right? Because we don't know until we know.
Yeah.
We won't know until we know. Be curious. Be curious about that. Maybe we can do some change, which is what I'm hoping to do with Allied Industry Inclusion Council.
I love it. And for those that are just joining here, we're here with Sandy Zannino, and we're talking about DEI and leadership. And for those dealers that are out there and they're thinking and they're watching right now, they're listening right now, and maybe thinking to themselves, yeah, but there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of challenges in dealerships and in our industry. So how do you take those and turn them into opportunities?
Oh, gosh. I think that every challenge is an opportunity.
True.
I really do. I think that with the right mindset, when we put humanity into things, we have an opportunity to learn. on both sides. And in HR, believe me, I've seen every challenge there could possibly, well, maybe not every, but a lot of them.
I was going to say, just wait 5 minutes. You'll find something else new will pop up. I guarantee it.
Right. I've never been bored. I've also, let's see, 1998, because of course there are, we have to, as a business, you have to be cognizant of the legal risk of things, right? It's pretty interesting that this is what I do, because on one side of what I do, I'm like, be compliant, stay in line with the laws, and I help people understand what the laws are, right? I train on the do's and don'ts of interviewing, right? What you can and can't ask. It's intertwined, because when we ask the wrong thing, it's because it's based in some bias that you have, right? It's based in some bias that you don't recognize. So a quick example, well, do you have childcare? Like, right? You're asking a female participant, when the question is, these are the hours for this job. Do you have a problem doing that? Right? We're going to bell to bell.
Don't get me started on that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things, right? It is all intertwined, right? But challenges can be opportunities. I think they are opportunities if we look at things in the right way, right? And of course, there are some challenges that are an opportunity to say goodbye, right? And it's sometimes that's the right thing for everybody. I think one of the best things I ever did in a challenge in the workplace, in dealership, was say goodbye to somebody, right? I gave them, they ended up being on a last chance agreement, because I am I think that people deserve a second chance. And they got it was a last chance, and that last chance came and went. And do you know, today, this makes me just, whenever I see him, he thanks me.
No way.
Yes, he does, because he changed his life.
Good. He
went on. I was real clear about what the problem was. This is what you're being terminated for. And he got his shit together. He got cleaned, and he's now has his PhD. It's crazy.
Oh my God.
No,
awesome.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody is let them go.
Hard love, man. Tough love.
Just make sure you're honest, open.
Literally just having a conversation with a friend before, early this morning, about, please just be an adult. Have that hard conversation. I was gonna say it's not difficult. It is difficult. It is difficult to have that and maybe make yourself uncomfortable. I guarantee you it's going to make everything better, though, because now you're honest with the person sitting across from you about whatever it is, versus I'm going to go to 17 other people and talk shit about you and about whatever it is, but I'm not going to come to you about it. Just come to me about it. We're adults, at least we can try to be adults and have an adult conversation about whatever it is. And this goes across the board. Just go to the person. Don't throw them under the bus with everyone you're talking to, when all you had to do is have one hard conversation, and then whatever the outcome is, would have been better than you going around doing all the other stuff that you've been doing.
You know what? And if leaders learn how to do that and help their teams learn how to do that, you will have a lot less conflict or stretched out conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a real world example of that. Somebody's oversharing, right? Stuff that you don't want to hear.
Yep.
It is so simple to say, hey, TMI.
Yeah.
Too much information for me. And some of that might not be good in the workplace, right? Say TMI. Instead of going to HR, filing a complaint for something that is not, really that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And then you're paying attorneys, because you don't live in fear, man. Then you're paying attorneys, and you're paying your HR consultant a whole bunch of money.
Yep. It's true. And I go back to and I don't want to minimize this, but you and I growing up in the industry, and I don't know all of your history, so I don't want to speak out of turn. I can tell you, I've been in the industry about 15 years. I went to HR once, and it was over something that was so egregious that I didn't have a choice. I had to go. But it's do you know how bad it has to get? And I don't want this to be like moving forward, we've gotten a lot better. I'm just saying, when I grew up in the industry, you just didn't go to HR. Like, it had to be really bad. You didn't go over because someone took your apple from the fridge. Like, there's just a lot bigger things in the world to worry about than to bring in HR. Like I said, bring in the intern, bring all the I'm gonna say hostage negotiation to get things done. It's like, couldn't this just been solved by having a conversation?
One of my pet peeves about HR, even though I am an HR professional, right? I think we are, as a profession, not trusted by employees, right? There's a deep lack of trust that if you go to HR, they're not going to do the right thing anyway, right? They're not going to help you resolve the issue that you're having. When I think that that's our job, right? Customer service, I may be one of the only ones, but I believe that human resources is a customer service role.
It is. 100% is.
It's internal customer service. It's not, yes, HR should be helping to protect the company in helping the managers understand the laws that they need to understand so that they don't throw some of the profits that they're working so hard to make out the door, right? On a stupid lawsuit that could have been prevented. And there takes a level of trust there, right? And dealers need to they need to understand that HR, or have an HR person that they have complete confidence in, right? I worked for a dealer for almost 20 years. My nickname was PETA.
I was not expecting that.
Because, they didn't nickname people that they didn't like, right? Like and I ran the corporate office and I was his right hand, right? But he knew when I was coming to him on an HR thing that I was going to be a PETA. For him, it was a PETA, right? Like it was a PETA, a pain in the ass, right? And here she comes. And it to the point where I said, hey, I want a name tag like the people at the stores. And he got me one with PETA.
Oh, mercy.
But he knew it might have bugged him. But he knew that I was going to be brave enough to tell him the truth. Yeah. That I wasn't going to blow smoke up his skirt. Mm-hmm. I wasn't gonna, sugarcoat things. And I was going to tell him the truth. And I was going to tell him what I think would resolve it and how to be better and not get into a lawsuit.
Yep.
We love to sweep stuff under the table.
Oh my gosh, do we? Yes, we do.
It will come out. It will come crawling out from
funny how the truth has a funny way of finding the light. That's all I'm going to say.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Oh, man. I love it. Okay, let's round this out with that. When it comes to DEI policies, when it comes to, in general, just having it influences brand reputation. But my question is, how does it influence the brand reputation and the customer loyalty in our industry?
I think that, customer loyalty, right? We can look again, the demographics of the world. And you do need to look at the demographics of the area that you operate in, right? Like there's going to be some areas that don't seem very diverse, and they might not be. You want to match that. And you also want to, when you put that out, put real pictures of your people on your website. If you don't have to shout out to the world, we do DEI, or you can, because there's going to be a lot of people that are looking for it, right? There's going to be, especially younger generations. I want to say it's up in the 70s percentage of millennial and Gen Z. Remember, 64% of the workforce. The DEI initiatives are a big deciding factor for them when they're looking for a new role. Right. And the first place they're looking is on your website and on your career page. Right. So if you do have initiatives, if you have ERGs, if you're even thinking about it, right, put it on your website, because they're going to want to know. If you're don't lie, be authentic.
Yes, please don't. No.
Be authentic. Say what you're going to say. If you've created benefits, DEI should be something that ends up being in the DNA of your organization. right? In your benefits that you offer, in the way that you treat your customers, like you were talking about, right? Like who speaks the language of the people that I'm selling to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just speaks their language, but connects with them culturally, who understands all of that, right? Like all of these things are really, I think they're super important.
Agreed. Well, Sandy, we have reached that time where we are jumping.
Oh, was that lightning?
That was lightning, not with my lightning, my friend. We are jumping in the lightning round with Sandy now. So first and foremost, for those that are watching, we've got Sandy's QR code right behind here. You got her personalized link. Go ahead and scan that, get in contact with her. But for those that are listening in podcast land, how can they get in touch with you and how can they find you?
Well, to get in, you can find me on social media on LinkedIn and, well, Facebook. I'm not really on Facebook, but LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. It's my happy place. You can contact me at my cell number, which is 941-306-8310. You could email me at sandy@innovativeautohr, or you can reach out to Brooke and she'll get you to me.
That works as well. Well, one of us will end up getting you over to Sandy and get you all taken care of. All right. The name of the show is Facts, Not Feelings. So whether it's in your personal life or it's in your professional life, how are you distinguishing facts from feelings?
That is such a great question. And, you know, whenever I see the title of your show, facts are not feelings. They really aren't, right? And when we remember that, and as it pertains to what I do, right? Both in DEI and in HR, you know, sticking to the facts, right? And asking, one big thing is asking myself, why do I feel that way? Understanding, you know, part of we talked about emotional intelligence, right? And understanding that is starting to recognize, what am I feeling, right? Am I feeling anxious? There's like the little wheels, like I feel good, I feel bad. Those don't really describe, right? Are you, you know, so I think it's, I love the name of your show, Brooke, and I think it's something that everybody can remember, that facts really aren't feelings.
No, they're, and it drives me, and I'm a pragmatical person where I'm just very, while I have emotions, I'm very keep a focus on everything. So it's, for me, I'm just like, God, get the feelings out of it. Come on, let's get back to the data. Let's get back to the facts. Stop doing this feel like stuff. It drives me bonkers. I'm like, oh, for the love.
You know, I understand that. I think that what's interesting for me and you, right? I think so many things I think we're completely aligned in. And yet when you say that, I think to myself, I always look for the happy medium, right? I can't take emotion out of everything, right? And I think that one emotion that's really, really important for us to cultivate really is empathy.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Eyes with this person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is sometimes even sympathy, but understanding where somebody's coming from. And also not really going, I have a lot of conversations with people, right? And lots of times I have to redirect, well, so tell me what's happening in this situation. Well, I think that they think that, no.
Telephone game.
Who, what, where, why, when, and who else?
Yeah.
Right? Let's stick to the facts. Those, you know, and it'll help you. It'll help keep your feelings straight. If you stick to the facts, it'll keep your feelings straight.
It's true. All right. If you could have one superpower, what's your superpower going to be?
Oh, shit. I think I want to fly.
I do. I'm right there with you.
I think I want to fly.
Love it.
Fly so I can go see my family real fast. I want to fly so I can go see my extended family in Cuba real fast. I want to fly, you know. Really, it's about how can I connect with the people I love the most.
I agree. I've always wanted to fly, and I love the dreams where you're flying. So, all right, Sandy, thank you so much for being a part of this. It's been so much fun having you on the show, learning more, not only about leadership, but DEI, and knowing that it's more than just what you may think and what you may feel. It's way more than that. So I just want to thank you so much for being a part of that. And as everyone knows at this point, you know the drill. Find a way to serve today. Find a way to just be the joy in someone's life today. I don't care if it's opening a car door, it could be smiling at somebody. It's just doing some selfless act that betters someone's life today. And with that, everyone, we will see everybody next week.